Good morning. Welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. One of my favorite stories comes from the time in the Middle Ages when the Pope and some of his cardinals were watching wagon loads of gold being carried into the Vatican treasury. One of the cardinals said, "Your Eminence, no longer can the Church say, 'Gold and silver have I none.'" The Pope looked back sadly and replied, "Yes, and no longer can she say, 'Rise, take up your pallet and walk.'" That Pope seemed to understand that power corrupts, and there's something to be said for a more simple, direct faith. Another way to look at that in our time is to consider our sophistication and scientific dependency. We often think we have things understood, and we look to theories and thinkers for answers. It wasn't always that way. There was a time when people of faith had visions and found God communicating through them. That was the case with Birgitta of Sweden. This week we are continuing our year-long series of taking 1 week of every month and highlighting those men and women of faith that the Church commemorates and remembers that month. One of those remembered in July is Birgitta of Sweden. Birgitta, as she is known in Sweden, or Bridget in other places, was born in 1303, the daughter of one of the most prominent men in the country. Even as a child, she had dreams of Christ crucified and of Mary, his mother. Her mother died when Birgitta was 12, and she was married the next year. It was a happy marriage, producing 4 sons and daughters, one of whom was made a saint by the Roman Catholic Church. Because her husband and father were prominent people in Sweden, Birgitta was made a lady-in-waiting to the new queen, and so she was around the royal court. There she became known for her remarkable dreams and also for her strong denunciations of wickedness in the court and among high officials in the church and the state. Apparently, Birgitta didn't hold her tongue when she saw evil. Later in life, she began a series of pilgrimages, and after returning from one of those, her husband fell ill and died. After that, she began to live a more ascetic life, and her visions became stronger and more profound. She began to devote more and more of her time and effort to helping the needy of Sweden and then later of Rome. She continued her criticisms and warnings to kings and popes, and when war broke out, she tried to mediate a peace. She lived during that schism we talked about yesterday, when there were 3 popes, and she urged a resolution to that as well. Eventually she founded an order of monks and nuns called the Order of the Holy Savior, and they were commonly called the Birgittines. When the Reformation came along a few hundred years later, these orders were all abolished, and the last one to go was the Birgittines. Birgitta is best known for her book entitled Revelations, which is still read today. It is mostly about visions of the sufferings of the Savior and judgments on specific people and events. Late in life, she made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land and died soon after her return. Soon she was known as the patron saint of Sweden, and a layperson's association inspired by her life was formed to do good in society. We don't pay much attention to visions and dreams nowadays, at least not like Birgitta and those of her time did. Maybe we should. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.